Hello everyone, this is Donnie aka Elevated with Dota Alchemy, and thank you for tuning in again today. Today's video is going to tackle a subject that we have gotten a lot of questions about here on YouTube, and something that most players, myself included, have struggled with in the game of Dota 2, which is actually ending the freaking game. How do you go high ground, and why is it so damn hard to do? For the last year or so, going high ground has gotten progressively harder. First, it was the shrines being introduced, which was completely ridiculous. But then, even after they were removed, it was just very hard to accomplish the act of actually closing out the game. This is even more true in the uncoordinated landscape of public matchmaking. Between the strength of buybacks, close proximity to the enemy fountain, and the need to funnel through a choke point, uphill into a tower, the odds of actually breaking high ground are truly stacked against the winning team. This situation calls for a very calculated approach to the fight, and because of the coordinated effort needed to actually pull it off, can be very difficult to accomplish in pubs. High ground attempts are one of the fastest and easiest ways to throw winnable games. Knowing when you can or cannot actually breach high ground is one of the most difficult things to judge and orchestrate in a pub. Most players tend to overestimate their ability to actually go high ground. They overestimate their own strength, and they end up charging headlong into a brick wall of spammable spells and big teamfight ultimates. There are a couple alternative ways to approach the issue of going high ground that can really improve your team's success rate when actually trying to end the game. The first and most obvious way is to kill Roshan and take the Aegis. Preferably, this is actually the second Aegis with the Aegis and Cheese, or even the third Aegis with the Aegis, Cheese, and Refresher Shard. Having essentially 7 total lives, plus a double key ultimate, can really even the odds when you're facing the potential of 5 enemy heroes dying and buying back for a total of 10 heroes that you end up having to kill to actually breach the base. Even with the Aegis, however, the task can be pretty difficult because it requires a lot of close attention to positioning, especially when you're facing a lot of spammable spells or repositioning abilities like Batrider's Lasso or Pudge's Meat Hook. The much easier way is to simply go high ground after killing the other team when they don't have buyback. But that's kind of cheating because it's also easier said than done, and obviously if the other team's not there to defend their base, then it's very easy to push. I've seen so many games stall out after all the outer towers are down, and even sometimes after the first set of racks is down, when the other team is forced to play together in a constricted map. Basically, if they're losing, they're forced to be together, which is something that a lot of teams in pubs won't do normally. The game devolves into 5 heroes on the team that's ahead, kind of running around the map, trying to get some farm, trying to keep the waves pushed in, keep the enemy team stuck in their base. But it's kind of just aimlessly farming jungle camps, and you end up being alone, which makes you more vulnerable to getting picked off by the team that's stuck in their base. This usually leads to one of 2 things happening. Either a pickoff, or the winning team, or the team that's ahead, ends up getting bored of this sort of aimless wandering around the map trying to get some farm, and they just force it. And they just try to push their way up high ground without really having any sort of plan or approach, because they're just bored of the status quo of just nothing really going on. Both of these scenarios end up with map control collapsing and usually results in throwing the game. So we're going to try to avoid that. So what's actually the easiest way to win pubs? Simply, it's combining having an Aegis with an overwhelming net worth advantage. We're talking being so far ahead that even 10 enemy heroes cannot stand against your push. This obviously sounds pretty obvious when I speak it, but it's also the easiest to coordinate and the simplest to understand, which makes it a very good approach for an uncoordinated pub environment. Basically, we've already established that it's too difficult to control the entire map with only 5 heroes. There's just not enough heroes to cover all of the exits that the enemy team might be pushing And if you are alone on the map where you have, one hero in each lane and then maybe 2 heroes farming the jungle, trying to, get up that farm and control the map, make sure that the enemy team can't leave their base, you're just very vulnerable. It's actually very risky to control the map in this way. Another scenario that we often see when one team is stuck in their base and the other team is trying to control the map is that the team that's trying to control the map ends up rotating all 5 heroes or 4 heroes from one lane to the other, trying to catch enemy heroes who are split pushing them. And this actually ends up with the team that is stuck in the base getting more farm in a lot of cases, because one hero will try and push out a lane a little bit, 5 heroes will come to gank them. Meanwhile, the other 4 heroes that should be stuck in the base are able to then take over the other 2 lanes because there are 5 heroes showing in one lane trying to gank one hero. So it's actually really, really inefficient to chase the enemy team from one side of the map to the other as 5. The answer is posturing. Ends up being about posturing in the right place and using psychology instead of bodies to restrict the enemy farm. If you're scattered across the map and not actually threatening the enemy base, they will feel free and unthreatened to roam around the map, collect farm, gank your team. However, if you are posturing threateningly right in front of their base, threatening to take their racks, then they're going to have to come back and defend it. Or if they don't, you simply just go high ground because there's no heroes defending the racks. So while you might be giving up a little bit of farm in 1 or 2 of the other lanes, you end up controlling the map better because your team is together and safe, so the other team cannot break out of the base and gank you. And if you're postured correctly, they end up not getting any of the farm in the other lanes either. Whereas if you're chasing them from one side of the map to the other, they end up actually usually out farming you because you end up wasting so much time and splitting the small limited resources of one lane and maybe a few jungle camps between 5 heroes. So while you might not be getting all of the farm on the map, if you're controlling the right area, you can actually be getting a bigger net worth advantage because the other team is getting 0 farm. On the Radiant side, this usually means controlling the top half of the map and the Roshan pit. If the enemy team is scared that you might push their top barracks, they will need to retreat from the bottom half of the map to defend it. This means that they're not getting any farm, while your team is still getting farm from the top lane, the middle lane, and the entire enemy jungle. You are also controlling Roshan, which will eventually allow you to end the game more easily. On Dire, it's a bit more difficult because the easiest racks to take is in the bottom lane. However, once you've taken the bottom racks, you can do essentially the same thing that Radiant does, which is control the top and left side of the map, which also includes the Roshan pit. You basically want to create a sort of triangle of area that you control. You're controlling 2 lanes plus the Roshan pit, and this is going to allow you to get a good amount of farm while also securing the one objective that's really going to allow you to end the game easily. So you get a nice net worth advantage, you get the Aegis, and then you push high ground. In both cases, it's very important that you are positioning in a threatening enough way where they actually come back to base, but you don't go high ground if you're not ready, like you're still waiting on Aegis or still waiting on BKBs or ults to come off of cooldown. Don't fully commit to the push. Just poke at their tower, force them back into their base, and as a result, they end up getting less farm, you guys get more farm, and this way, you don't end up throwing the game. So hopefully this video makes sense, and it makes going high ground and actually ending the games a little bit easier and more consistent for you in your games. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel so you can stay up to date with all the new content coming out, and there will be a lot of it once 7.20 or whatever the patch is drops. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time. Hello everyone, and thank you for watching the video. We genuinely appreciate your time and attention spent with us here on the YouTube channel. Please check out DotaAlchemy.com if you're looking for a way to let this channel continue to put out as much content as possible. We love you guys, and we will see you in the next video.